Cheers, hello, and welcome to CAD Live with me, Troy Francis. Welcome to another show, another week. We've embarked upon another week of this glorious year 2020, and yeah, here we are with CAD Live. So listen, what we're going to be talking about today is rejection. But before I get into the meat and drink of the topic of rejection, I just want to tell you a little bit about this show and while we're waiting for some more people to come in, because this show is kind of a new branding for me, if you like. And so I wanted to just explain a little bit about what we're doing here on CAD Live and how you can get involved yourself. So basically, right, what this is CAD Live is CAD, the acronym stands for Charisma and Dating Academy. And people who follow my stuff will know that I do a course that is called the same thing. So CAD Academy is a course I put out 4 times a year or so. And it's all about dating game and how to improve your charisma and all of those good things. This show I'm calling CAD Live. And initially I'm going to be doing this 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. And it's going to be at 11:30 a.m. Monday, Wednesday and Friday. And I might do some extra ones as well. I mean, I might go daily depending on how things progress. But at this moment, I can say definitely it's going to be Monday, Wednesday and Friday. It's going to be called CAD Live. It's going to be me going live on this YouTube channel for at least an hour and sometimes more, depending on, you know, what happens and the kind of topics that we're getting into, etc. And how it's going to go is basically this. I'm going to kick it off and there'll be a theme for each episode. It's going to be something to do with dating. It's going to be something to do with game. It's going to be something to do with all of that great stuff. You know, the dating marketplace, how to improve your success within dating, how to get more attractive women into your life, how to, more importantly than that, even how to get the types of women that you want to meet into your life. Because of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder and it's going to be different for everybody. But wherever you're at the moment, we want to help you to level up and get to that next stage. But here's the thing that's going to make this show different. This is the only show in this part of the internet, as far as I'm aware. I mean, maybe there are others, but this is the only show on YouTube of this kind where basically we will solve your dating dilemmas and challenges live and in real time. So how it's going to work is this. Basically, what I want you to do is any issues that you're having with your dating skills, with your game, with your charisma, etc., I want you to share them in the chat and we will get to them as we go further into the show. So basically, if there's anything that you want to ask about, you know, dating, the wonderful world of the dating marketplace as it stands right now, which is obviously a pretty tangled web that we've got out there at the moment. Anything that you want to ask about that, anything that you want to ask about dating skills, you know, how to be more charismatic, all of these kinds of things, whack them in the chat, and we will deal with them as the show goes on. Okay, so this is like almost like a surgery. You know how they talk about like in Britain, members of parliament, politicians, they have a surgery. And so people can come in and express their concerns, talk about their problems. And the member of parliament will, you know, take steps to sort out those issues after the person's come in. So it's going to be the same here. It's going to be like a drop-in surgery. Come in, whatever issues you've got going on, whatever problems that you've got in terms of your dating life and anything else, to be honest, because look, this is a private group. There's nobody watching. We can just, we can chat about anything you like. So whatever it is that you've got on your mind that pertains to this space, then just whack it in the chat and I will get to it later on in the show. And, who knows, maybe we'll get some feedback from other people who are watching as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope it's going to be actionable and useful, right? Because I want to ultimately, right, there's no point in being a content creator and going onto YouTube or going onto Instagram or going onto any of these platforms and just putting out a load of stuff and it not being helpful. Okay, so what I want is for this stuff to actually be helpful and actually to hopefully enable you to live a better life, and to create more options in your life, essentially, to create more freedom in your life, which is what I was talking about last week, if you remember that live stream earlier in the week. So I'm really, really keen, obviously, to get your input, to get your questions, and the kinds of things that you want to see covered in these streams, because, as I say, very important that it is absolutely relevant and bang on as much as possible. Lan says, tuning in for the quality content. Thank you, sir. Very much appreciate it. Oscar says, sup, Troy. Sup, Oscar. You look very cat-like there with nice blue eyes. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so that's basically what I'm doing with this stream. As I say, I'm calling it CAD Live. I'm going to do I'm going to get a logo done for it, and we'll brand it a little bit. But basically, that's how it's going to go. And it's going to be sort of like, it's going to be like a free version of some of the stuff that I do within CAD Academy, the course. Because when you enroll on CAD Academy, the course, we also do a series of usually 10 webinar sessions for people in the group. And in those sessions, obviously, we go into all aspects of game, dating, etc., etc. And I coach guys live, and I'll bring other people in to coach guys live as well. And that's really what I want to be doing in these shows. But this is like a free version of it that obviously anybody can access who's out there and happens to be watching on YouTube or whatever. And we're going to be bringing guests in as well, of course. We'll get some guys in, we'll interview them, you know, some of the usual suspects that you may know, maybe some people that you perhaps don't know as well. We'll get some other guys on board as well in some of the shows, just to sort of like mix things up a bit, get a different perspective. But as I say, this is really for you. So I want this to be as actionable and as useful for you as it possibly can be. So please do your bit with that and direct me in terms of the things that you want me to cover, you want me to talk about. The other thing to say is that this channel sadly is demonetized by YouTube because of the shocking nature of the content. It's actually not because of the shocking nature of the content. It's because of a mix-up with Google. But unfortunately, anyway, the channel's demonetized, which means that I don't do super chats, guys. I can't take super chats. I can't take donations and all that kind of stuff on this channel at the moment unless we can solve this issue. So that being the case, if you want to support the stream and you want to give me a little bit of pocket money, which would be very nice of you, then you can support the stream via Streamlabs. And I put the Streamlabs URL into the chat. You can see it there up on the screen, /Troy Francis 1. So yeah, if you feel inclined to support the stream, then please do so there. Because as I say, sadly, the channel's demonetized, and so we can't take live donations here. Anyway, with all of that being said, I hope you all had a great weekend. I hope everyone is in a nice, relaxed state and you're ready for an hour or so of world-class knowledge being drip-fed to you via this stream. I had a pretty good weekend, pretty busy. I was out and about doing some work, doing the Rule Zero stuff on Saturday, which was good. Saw some friends. And then yesterday, my girlfriend came over and I cooked her a steak because I was going to cook the dinner and I was going to do something else and we couldn't find the ingredients. So I just said, I'll do a steak. And I have to say, it was perhaps one of the best steaks I've ever cooked. Love your books, Troy. Thank you very much, Nash. That's I really appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Yeah, so like we bought this steak and very nice fillet steak and some vegetables and stuff, and I brought it back, and then I was cooking the steak, and she said to me, put soy sauce on it. Soy. I didn't put too much, don't worry. Put soy sauce on it and put some honey on it. So I put those on it, and then it started like all hissing and smoke coming out, and it looked really black, and I was like, oh God, I've really burnt it badly. And she looked at it and she said, that's burned. You've kind of burnt that quite badly. But in fact, no. Well, I said, no, don't worry, never fear. And I sort of like scraped over it. And of course, a lot of the black was caused by the soy sauce. And I scraped it back, and it turned out that I cooked them wonderfully. It was a beautiful, beautiful couple of pieces of meat. And so we enjoyed it very much. And then we watched some reality TV show. And yeah, that was it. So it was a good Sunday. Anyway, enough about me, enough about my weekend. Let's talk about rejection. Okay, so obviously this topic is a cornerstone, really. Anybody who's talking about dating, anybody who's talking about game or pickup or whatever you want to call it, they're going to have to talk about rejection, because rejection really is part and parcel of this whole space. And there is no way around it, really. I mean, there's no way that you can escape from rejection unless perhaps you're Leonardo DiCaprio. And if you are Leonardo DiCaprio, thank you very much for tuning in. If you'd like to contribute to the stream, then the Streamlabs link is in the chat. But no, I mean, seriously, unless you are in a very, very small proportion of guys who has both, probably a combination of looks, status, maybe some money as well. And I'm not saying that, I don't want to get into the whole argument of, oh, it's all about money and looks and things. But look, the reality is those things help. But status above all, are you famous? Are you somebody who she's going to want to hang out with? Unless you happen to have all of those things, then the reality is that you are going to. Sorry, just a quick message here. And there we are. We're back. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened then. What was I saying? You're not going to get around this thing about rejection unless it happens that you are a famous celebrity or something like that. And even then, you're not going to get every woman. You're not going to get every girl on the planet. You're just not. It's just unrealistic. So everybody is going to face some sort of rejection at some point in their lives, and you have to get okay with that. If this is an area where you want to, grow, if this is an area where you want to get better and get greater success, you're going to have to be all right with rejection. Now, I sometimes had some get some flack on social media channels and things, and I mean, I think there was something a little while ago. Somebody was saying like, oh, Troy never talks about rejections. He never so how can you take someone seriously who doesn't talk about the fact that rejection is part and parcel of this process? And for a start, that's not true, because if people used to read my articles on Return of Kings, ROK, and if they read a lot of the stuff that I put out on my blog, because I was blogging on a daily basis for a couple of years, around sort of 2017, 2018, they will know that I've written extensively about rejections that I have suffered out there in the field. I've written about it probably more than anybody else I can think of. I could be wrong, but when I was doing my daily blog, which I've now sort of replaced really with doing YouTube and other things, but when I was writing a daily blog, a lot of it was very personal stuff that I was talking about. I was talking a lot about my own experience, as well as some theory and some hopefully some advice for other people. But a lot of it was just the story of my exploration of this stuff. And I was talking a hell of a lot about rejections, to the point that I was thinking, Jesus, this is you're gonna have to be a bit careful here, because it's a weird thing, isn't it, as a content creator, and particularly when you're talking about this stuff. You're talking about, yeah, man, how do you get good at dating? How do you get better at this stuff? And it immediately puts a target on your back, because people are going to say, well, what right have you got to talk about this? Like, what's your success then? And all of that. And that's fair. But, in talking about rejections, which are inevitable for anybody, you also then run the risk that people are going to think, well, hang on a minute, this guy's rubbish. He's getting rejected the whole time. But for me, I think it's very important to be authentic. I think it's very important to be honest about the process. And so there were a lot of articles that I did about pretty disastrous things that happened in terms of my own dating life at that time, as well as the success stories as well. Because here's the thing, right? I think for me, I've seen a lot of success in this area, and I've also seen a lot of failure in this area as well. And I believe that is kind of par for the course for most people who get into this. And like, the guy who takes the most shots is going to get the most wins, right? So the guy who, throws the ball at the basket is going to get it through the cheeky hoop more than the guy who doesn't. But he's also going to miss more, because that's just the nature of things, right? So it's like the old saying, which has been attributed to a number of different people. You miss 100% of the shots is that sorry, I don't know why the camera keeps going. It's a little bit odd. But the other side of that equation is that you're also gonna miss some of the shots that you do take. But that's okay, because what's your ultimate overall goal here? Well, your ultimate overall goal, presumably, is to, and it depends at what stage in your life you are. Maybe you're just looking for a nice girlfriend and whatever, and that's fine. In a different period of your life, you might be looking to have, kind of a prolific, varied dating life, and so you're looking to meet a variety of different women, and maybe you have them concurrently, and so on and so forth. And so, but ultimately, your ambition is to be successful. Okay, so your ambition is, say, in the month, maybe your ambition is to be with two new girls, to be intimate with two new girls at a certain point in your life. Fair enough. That there's nothing wrong with that as an aspiration, I would argue. But in order to get to that, you just have to be right with the fact that you're also going to go through a number of rejections. Now, you will take more rejections than the average guy in pursuing that objective, in pursuing that goal. But you will also get more success than the average guy in taking those rejections. So say that somebody every month he was intimate with two new women, okay? But every month he went and spoke to 100 different girls. That would mean that he'd been rejected 98 times a month, and he'd been successful 2 times per month, just so that was his average, just for example. So most guys and all women and most guys do not get rejected 98 times in a month. So, you could look at this dude and be like, this is horrific. What a terrible failure you are. You're getting blown out 98 times a month. That's unimaginable. What a mega chode you must be in order for that to happen. But here's the truth. How many dudes do you know who are getting together with 2 new partners per month? Very, very few. Okay. So the guy who is out there doing it, he's going to take more rejections, but he's also going to get more success. And that's just kind of how it goes. And you want to get all right with that idea. And even if you're doing dating apps, you're still going to get rejection on dating apps. I mean, you're going to, and we're going to go in a second into the different types of rejections that you can face. But you get rejected on dating apps all the time when she doesn't swipe you, right? When she swipes left. Then you have been rejected. Okay, so if you're on a dating app and you swipe 100 times, and maybe even if you get, say you got 50 matches, say you're a real chat and you get like a ton of matches, but you're still being rejected by half of those girls who haven't chosen to swipe on your profile. And then you get to the next phase, and you might get rejected in the next phase or the phase after that. So rejection is always going to be inherent. Whether you are somebody who prefers to socialize and meet people during the daytime, whether you're somebody who likes to go to nightclubs and bars and do all of that stuff, or whether you're just a dating app person, or whether you're a bit of all of them, there is always going to be some rejection. And the key thing is, it's like input output, isn't it? And you've got to input as many approaches of whatever kind as possible, and then so that the output is a consistent number of successes, or the level of success that you would prefer. Okay, so that's where it is. It's just a fact of life, right? Unless, now there's always going to be somebody. Maybe somebody in the chat's already said it. Maybe somebody in the chat's already said, yeah, but I know this dude, and he's like, he just does 2 approaches a month, and he meets 2 girls a month, or he just swipes twice on Tinder and he gets 2 girls a month. Well, okay, fine. I mean, there are outliers for sure. There are guys who are very, very good looking. They're very charismatic. They have some status. There's something about them that makes them stand out. Well, great for them. Fantastic. I absolutely mean it. Fantastic for them. That's wonderful. But if you're not one of those guys, and the vast majority of people aren't, then what are you going to do? Okay. And it comes down to almost like the old black pill versus red pill type conversation that we always have. It's sort of like, well, either in the end you're going to complain about that and you're going to sit in your room and you're going to cry about it, or you're going to think, I'm going to take the action that I need to take in order to level up the playing field. And this is really what dating skills, dating strategies are all about. They're about evening up the playing field, because yes, you have the you have the dudes at the top who are the chads, the ripped, whatever it is, and they're like the old rich. They're like old money in a way. They've already got their fortune. Their fortune was given to them by their parents. It was left to them in the will, whatever. Okay, well, that's fine. Fantastic. Brilliant. They're sorted. But if you're not, then you're obviously going to have to do something different in order to get up to that stage. And dating skills, game, all this stuff, it's really about hacking the system and leveling out that playing field so that you can enjoy some of the successes that these guys here are enjoying. And if that means you've got to work a bit harder, well, there it is. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to go on to, somebody's 8-hour stream and complain about the dating marketplace? Or are you going to pick yourself up and think, right, I'm going to go for it, Okay, right. So what I wanted to do is now talk about, where's the drink gone? I wanted to just talk about the different types of rejection that you can get, because a lot of the time, and this is something Tom Torero used to talk about, so I'll give him some credit for this. So this is not entirely nicked from him, because this is something that we all have experienced, but I know he's talked about this before. There are different levels of rejection that you can get. Now, when we talk about rejection, probably when you saw the title for this video, this live stream, you probably thought, oh, rejection. So he's going to be talking about, I walk up to the girl in the bar and she looks me up and down and says, nah, thanks, you're ugly, mate. Sod off. And, that sort of rejection. That is the type of rejection that we most commonly think of when we consider rejection in this area. But that's only one of several layers of rejection that you can experience within the dating marketplace. Okay, I would say it's rejection level number one. So the very first type of rejection you can get, and you will get, and we all get, is that you will walk up to the girl, say, it's the daytime, say you're in Starbucks and she's there buying her pastry, or she's, whatever she's doing. And you think that she looks nice, like somebody you want to get to know. And so you walk over and you say, hey, I just saw you. You look really nice. I'm Troy. I just wanted to sort of come and meet you. I'm kind of social like that. I thought I'd take the opportunity. How's your day going? Whatever. And then she looks at you and she goes, oh, okay, sorry, I've actually got a boyfriend. I've got to go, but thank you. And then she walks off. That is level one rejection. That is the most basic sort of rejection. I mean, another example might be you're in the bar and you walk up to her and you say, hey, you look cute. I'm Troy. How's your night going? And she looks at you like, like you are some sort of creature from the lagoon. And then she just turns her back on you and just carries on talking to her friend. That's another level one rejection. That's the very basic form of rejection that you can get, which is you've walked up to her, you've taken your shot, she's not bitten. Or she might be more direct. She might say, oh, thank you, that's really nice, but I'm actually not interested, or I'm married, or I'm engaged, or there are different levels of how they're gonna put this in terms of how nice they're feeling at the time, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. Whatever she says, she might say, oh, it's a girls' night or something like this, and we're not here to talk to guys, blah blah blah. It doesn't really matter. Whatever she's saying, it's a polite way of saying I'm not interested, and fine. And so you're like, okay, fine, have a great night, move on. So that's the very basic form of rejection, and this is what we think about most when we consider rejection. But what's the next level up from that? Well, say you get into a conversation with this girl, and in fact, there are actually so many levels to this that I'm probably even prefacing it. I'm abridging it, even in the list that I'm going to give you. But say the next level is that you're there and you have a conversation with this girl. You're talking to her for like 5-10 minutes. There's kind of good vibe. You're getting on well. It's all like going in kind of the right direction. And then you say to her, listen, I've got to get going now because I've got to go meet my friends. in another part of town. However, another time it would be great for us to meet up and maybe we could grab a drink. How about we exchange numbers? And she goes, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, that sounds good. So you say, okay, you hand over your phone. She puts in her phone number, whatever, you save her name, and that's it. But then you leave the bar and one of a number of things happens. You look at your phone to maybe to think about sending her a message, and you realize that she's given you a fake number, or she's given you the correct number, but then you send her a message and she doesn't respond to the message. Maybe she even blocks you. You know, if it's on WhatsApp or something, sometimes that happens. She'll even block you after she's given you the number because she only gave you the number to be polite, because she couldn't handle the thought of, of rejecting you at that point. So she gives you a number and you message her and she blocks you, or she ignores the message. She doesn't respond, whatever. Okay. That is then the second layer of rejection, because although it might feel like you got somewhere, and she hadn't initially said to you, "Sod off, you're ugly. I'm not interested. I don't want to. I wouldn't touch you with a barge pole." You think, "Oh, this is all right," but then she rejects you at that second level, and that's a second level rejection. Okay. The next level of rejection is, I suppose, when you say she gives you the phone number or the Instagram DM, her Instagram name or whatever, and you are messaging her and she is responding and she's coming backwards and forwards and you're having a bit of banter, you're having a little chat, whatever. And then you say to her, listen, it would be really great. I know this cool cocktail place. We should meet up. How about Wednesday, 8 p.m.? And then she either ignores the message, she doesn't respond, or she says, ha ha ha, lols, I can't do Wednesday, my friends are in town, and doesn't, give you an alternative. And then maybe you try again and she does the same thing, whatever. Basically, you ask her for a date. You're trying to move the thing on to the next stage, which is for you guys to actually meet in real life. And she blocks that. She doesn't allow you to move forward in that direction. All right. That is then the next stage of rejection. So, you've got the phone number. You've been having a chat. Maybe she's sent a few winky faces and, it's been a little bit flirty or whatever. But then she doesn't come to meet you on the date. So you've been rejected at a higher level, but it's still a rejection. What's the next level of rejection you can experience? Well, what about if she does meet you for that drink? What about if she says, yeah, fine, Wednesday, 8 p.m., cocktails, sounds amazing. And she comes out and she meets you and you guys go for a couple of drinks, and it's quite fun and it's quite flirty. Maybe you even make out. This happens. Maybe you even actually get to the stage where you guys are kissing and it all seems to be great, And then you say to her, I tell you what, those videos that I was talking about that I've made for YouTube, you should come back and see them. My apartment's just over there. We should go back and, we can watch the videos and maybe have a glass of wine, whatever. And she says no. She says, I can't do that. Got to be up for work tomorrow. And then you message her the next day and she doesn't reply and she ghosts you. Okay. This is another level. We're on about level 4 now, I think, of rejection. And as you go up the chain, it gets worse in a way, because when you're in the bar and you go up to the girl and she's just like, no, sorry, not interested. I mean, that can sting. For sure, that can sting, and that puts a lot of guys off from doing this stuff in the first place. But you can get over it quite quickly with a little bit of mindset training and stuff. You can get over that quite quickly because there's been no sort of like really much contact between you, and you haven't got anywhere at all. It's sort of easier just to move on from it. What's worse is when you've actually started to build something up a little bit, and particularly if you've been on a date with her and that's even worse then, because you can no longer say, well, she just didn't like my approach, or she just didn't like the way that, the kind of game that I used, or, because now she's actually spent time with you and she's actually had like an insight into your personality, and she's now she's still rejecting you. Maybe you've made out with her, and it gets worse as you go up the ladder, because obviously your hope is increased as you continue this journey with her. You know, like you've been on the date, you've made out, you've, you know, held hands, you've embraced, whatever it is, right? Your hand was on her leg, all of that kind of good stuff. And of course, your hope for this prospect is then increased exponentially, because you're like, wow, this is she likes me. This is going somewhere. This has got legs. And then for her to reject you at that point is in a sense worse than if you'd have been rejected just from the off, you know. And then the next level of rejection comes when you guys actually have been intimate together. So say the first date or the second date, and then maybe she comes back to your apartment to have a couple of drinks, and one thing leads to another, and you guys are intimate together. Okay, fantastic. And then the next day, or well, she leaves that night or the next day, whenever, and she says, listen, it was great. And you quite like her because, you know, she's sexy, she's great, you know, and you've had a good time, and you want to, you know, you're thinking, well, I'm not necessarily want her to be my girlfriend, but, you know, I could see myself meeting her again. This is kind of cool. We could get a little arrangement going here. And she says, yeah, cool. Just, you know, I'll message you in the week or whatever. And then she ghosts you, and then it just goes black. And, you know, maybe you message her, she doesn't respond. Maybe she even blocks you, you know, like the line goes flat, and she just walks out of your life and she disappears. And that could be the worst of all, because by that time, maybe you've developed some kind of feeling for her, a little, you know, not massive one-itis, but, you know, you're like, wow, this girl was cool. She was sexy. We had a really great night together. And, you know, you might start to think, well, it must be my, sexual abilities must be terrible, because like we've had sex once, and now she won't even give me the time of day. So as you go up the ladder, these like types of rejection can actually feel worse and worse and worse as you go on. So in a way, perhaps that puts into perspective a little bit the very kind of easy, actually, first level rejection, which is when you just walk up and you'll say, you know, you just say hi to her and she bats you off. In a sense, when you put it into that context of the chain of possible rejections that you could face, it kind of maybe doesn't seem so bad. You know, I mean, so what if some random girl, you know, just expresses disinterest in you, or doesn't want to have a further conversation with you? I mean, like, it's like, so what? It's not as bad. And then, of course, I suppose you could take it even further. You know, maybe you end up dating this girl for a bit, and then she just ghosts you, or whatever. And then, of course, and I don't want to take it this far because it's not really my, you know, my wheelhouse. But you when you get into marriage and things like that, then you can have a situation where the husband or the wife, but, you know, one of the partners is sexually rejected within that marriage. You know, like maybe the husband wants to get intimate, and she's sort of like, actually, no, sorry, I'm not feeling this at the moment. And then you're being rejected actually within the context of a committed relationship. So rejection can hit you at any point, really, in this. I mean, you know, journey is a cheesy word, but you know what I mean? Like, at any point in this path, you can be hit with rejection. And actually, the rejection that you face when you're on a night out, or when you're doing a bit of daytime approach, is really, in the big scheme of things, is really nothing to worry yourself too much about. Okay, the thing I think that upsets guys, and used to upset me, certainly, about rejection in terms of the first a level 1 rejection, is that when you get a lot of them piling up on top of one another, it can very quickly start to get into your head, and it can very quickly start to ruin your state, let's say, because, you know, if you go to the club and you talk to 10 girls and all of them reject you, then it's very hard, even for the most stoical, zen-like, dude who's done all the mindset techniques, who's been in CAD Academy, who's worked on himself and all this kind of stuff. It can be very hard to hold your frame, if you like, in that situation, or to maintain your sense of yourself as being the prize when cold hard reality is smacking back at you and is informing you that actually, no, you're not the prize, because 10 women have made it abundantly clear that they don't want anything to do with you. So rejection can harm your mindset, and particularly rejection on top of rejection on top of rejection. Okay. And this is why I believe most guys don't really want to do in real life meetups with, they don't like meeting girls in real life. And this is why when the dating apps came along, it was such a boost for everybody, because then the rejections they were getting were somewhat at a distance. Because like I said before, the first rejection you're getting, you're hardly even conscious of a lot of the time, which is that she just doesn't swipe on your profile. And then if you are chatting to her for a bit and then it just goes cold, well, you can sort of like you can pass over it in your mind, because you're probably chatting to somebody else by then, and it's less of a big deal. It's a different story in real life when you're out in the club or you're out in the city going around talking to people and they're all blowing you out. That's not a good, that can feel difficult, that can feel challenging. But the truth is, if you are able to get over that feeling, if you are able to push on and push yourself and just keep going anyway, and just say to yourself inside, no, I am awesome, regardless of the fact, even if say you went to a nightclub and 100 girls rejected you. Okay, 100 girls. Can you imagine being rejected by 100 women in one night? How horrific would that be? But understand that even if that did happen, and you'd have to be going it some to make that a reality, but understand that even if that did happen, it's still statistically irrelevant. It's probably statistically, if 100 girls rejected someone in London, it would be statistically irrelevant within London, because London is so big. You've got like 8 million people or whatever. But certainly on a worldwide basis, your paltry, pathetic 100 rejections is not even a drop in the ocean in terms of the female population of this planet. So you have to understand that you are, even when rejections come thick and fast on top of one another, and they seem to be reinforcing one another, you are never going to be rejected enough that is in any way actually meaningful. Okay. So on that basis, you have to proceed, and you have to think, no, I am awesome, regardless of these minuscule number of rejections, even if it's 100, I am still awesome. And I'm going to continue forward, firm in that belief, until somebody in this place has the goddamn good sense to recognize my awesomeness, and we can create that spark and we can take things a little bit further. Okay. And what you find is, when you do adopt that mindset, and when you do just proceed with that kind of strength and that kind of clarity of vision and that sense of self-pride, I suppose, then actually things start to happen for you. Some of my best evenings in the club, when I was doing nightclub stuff a lot, would occur when I had been rejected many, many times in the course of the evening. Many, many, many times in the course of the evening. And what sort of happens is, if you've been rejected 5, 6, 7 times, I don't know, maybe it's different for other people, but for me, I get to that point, I'm just like, well, what else can they throw at me, right? This is kind of, I've already been blown out so many times that, to be honest, if I get blown out by the rest of the club, it's kind of just going to be funny, because what are they really going to do? They're not going to shoot me. And when you get to that level of just really not caring anymore, and really just being like, yeah, come on, bring it on. I'm going to go and talk to this one. Let's see if she chucks her drink at me. When you get to that sort of devil may care position, where you just really, really are not bothered, what happens? Amazingly, what you will find is that at that point, the girls start to react more favorably towards you, because they can sense and this is why people in this space will often talk about not being outcome dependent. They will sense the fact that you are outcome independent. They will sense the fact that actually you kind of don't really care. And this is when you, like, naturally, without even having to think about it, you know, RSD used to talk about this notion of self-amusement, you know, basically creating the party for yourself, okay? You will naturally go into self-amusement at this point because you will almost just be doing it for a laugh, you know? You like the outcome of like, oh, maybe I can meet and date with one of these beautiful girls here becomes secondary to the fact that you're just like, do you know what? Let's just burn it to the ground because it'll be funny. And ironically, when you get into that mindset, then things will start to happen for you. You will start to see better reactions. You will start to see more chemistry ignite between you and the women that you're talking to. You will start to get more IOIs, indicators of interest. You will start to feel that kind of sexual energy crackling between you and the women that you are interacting with. And that is a fantastic place to be. That is a fantastic place to get to. But you kind of have to go through that pain barrier first before you get there. And then you reach what I suppose we call state, or we call momentum, and suddenly you're flying. Okay. And by the way, I should just say this also works for general socializing as well, for networking. This basic concept of accepting rejection for what it is and moving forward anyway will also benefit you in business and other areas of life as well. Anyway, let's have a look now at the chart and see if anybody's got any wonderful questions or comments. So Vintage Dominus says, Troy, top of the morning to you. And Senor. Okay, so I thought he was going to be Irish, and then he goes into Senor. So probably the accent is wrong there. So Moan. Hi, Moan. Moan is a regular viewer of the show, so thank you for tuning in today, Moan. The question is, does being good at sales mean someone is good with ladies as well, or should it be the other way around? Well, I mean, I think if you are good at sales, then you will certainly have some of the raw skill sets that can help you in terms of dating in the way that I'm describing. For sure. I don't think it's an automatic correlation, because there are also people who are very good at sales. I mean, I've worked in sales departments in many companies, and you get a whole range of people in there, really. You get guys who are what they might call sharks, you know, who are just like, yeah, all right, darling, all right, love. And they're very good at sales, but they're also very good, you know, socially as well, because they're just that guy. Like, oh, yeah, all right, darling. Yeah, all right. Yeah. You know, and absolutely, you know, they are also good in sort of romantic dating and social situations generally, but not everybody. But I think the fundamental skills, the skill sets required for sales are things like persistence, rejection handling, the ability to maintain energy, the ability to present yourself in a charismatic way and your product or whatever. All of those sort of skill sets, they are equally applicable within dating, for sure. So I worked in sales for many years, and for many years of that, I was also going out and doing a lot of dating. So I was working sales jobs in London during the daytime, and then in the evening I was going out to the nightclubs. And sometimes, like pretty much every night of the week, you know, we go out in the evening to the clubs, certainly like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that kind of thing. And, you know, I would go directly from that sales environment into the club environment. And I found the two things very, very equivalent, you know, very, very similar in essence, in terms of what I was doing. Now, we could get into the whole thing about like, oh, so are you just saying it's a numbers game then? We can get into that. That's putting that to one side. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think an ability with sales, and remember John MLD always says sex is sales, and it is. So the skills are certainly transferable, without a doubt. And I would say if you want to get better at the in real life type stuff, if you're considering a career and you want a career that is and this is not a good reason to choose a career, but if you were considering a career and you wanted it to be one that reinforced your social skills, then I would say sales 100%. I mean, I am incredibly grateful that I worked in a sales background for many reasons. But in terms of my personal life and my dating life, but also my social life, the fact that I worked in a sales background, it really helped me. Because as I've said, I said the stream the other day when I was talking about introversion and being shy and all that stuff. I was a very, very different character many years ago. I was very introverted. I was very withdrawn. I found socializing incredibly difficult. And sales kind of just forces you to get out of your head and get on with it. Otherwise, you're going to get fired. That's the thing. I mean, like sales, you haven't really got a choice, and sales can be pretty brutal sometimes, depending on the kind of organization that you're working for, the kind of product. But if you're doing sales to the public, say you're doing telephone sales, you're ringing people up. I mean, they're not going to reject you in a nice, polite way. I mean, actually, rejections from girls in the dating marketplace can sometimes be nicer than if you're ringing up a householder at dinner time while he's trying to get the kids fed and everything and trying to sell him your crappy, whatever it is. So, yeah, I mean, sales 100%. There's definitely an equivalence there. Axel says it's too long already. I don't know what he means. Does he mean the stream is too long already? Just trying to give value, guys. I mean, what can I say? James Crown. Can we keep day gaming as we get older? Yes, men have a longer market value, but doesn't it get harder? Like you and Torero, do we need a new, older male day game model capitalizing on mature men? Well, possibly yes. Although, I mean, and by the way, I should make it clear again here that I'm not solely like a day game person. I mean, I think day game is a cool thing to be able to do, and I think people should be able to use it and stuff. And look, I mean, it kind of stands to reason, right? If you want to meet more people, and you've got the ability to go and socialize with people that you haven't met before in a daytime situation. So if you're at the coffee shop, you're at the bar, you're at the laundrette, the dry cleaners, I suppose you'd say, whatever. Yeah, sure. I mean, it makes sense to be able to have the skill set to go and just have a conversation with them that may lead on to perhaps being able to get their contact details and meet them at another time. I mean, why not? But that's not the only thing that I recommend. I think guys should also be using the apps. I think if you are up for it, then a bit of evening type game is good as well. And you can even do things like social. You can do social circle or at least, if not your group of friends, because that's certainly problematic, but at least things like joining groups or, like maybe you're part of a theatre group or an improv group or, whatever it is, you've got some kind of hobby, then you can use that as well. So I don't recommend just day game. Having said that, on this question, the other thing to note on this is as well, I do know guys who are in their 50s and so on who do daytime approach and are successful at it. And the model isn't really any different, to be honest, because attraction is attraction, and socializing is socializing, and it doesn't really get markedly different as you get older. I mean, what you might want to do is think about where you are geographically. You might want to think, well, is this a location where, realistically, I'm going to get the results I want to get? And you might want to think about looking at some different areas. You might want to think, well, what about Eastern Europe? What about these different places? What about Russia? But I think people's how can I say, desires and proclivities change over time anyway. And I think, I used to think, well, what about when you're 60? Can you still be out there doing game and everything? I think the truth of the matter is you do become less bothered as you get older. The white hot, and here's my experience, right? And I, as a guy, who I'm in my 40s now, the white hot heat of, oh my God, I've got to go out and, go and do some dating and everything. It does start to recede a bit, I think, as you get older. And, I think what happens as guys start to get into their late 40s and 50s and things is that, it's not that they lose all interest, but it certainly becomes softened and other things become equally or more important to them. So I think it's a problem that sort of, to some degree, resolves itself with time anyway. That's just my take now. I don't know. I mean, this is the journey everyone's on. I mean, nobody really knows. So we're kind of the canary in the coal mine here. Tony says hello. Hello, Tony. Oho says, what happened to your podcast on iTunes? It puts me as unavailable. Is it actually saying unavailable now? The thing is, basically, I've got to sort this out, and apologies for this. It's because of an issue with SoundCloud, which is where I actually host the podcast. So I'll try and sort it out. I will hopefully be able to get the old episodes back up there. If not, that will be a bit of a shame. But, I mean, you've got to be philosophical about these things. I mean, I'm putting out new content the whole time, and some of the early podcasts are probably not that good. So, but let's see. I'm going to see if I can get them all back up. Having said that, failing that though, if you go onto YouTube, or you're on YouTube now. If you are, then go to my YouTube channel and hit subscribe. I upload the podcast every week to YouTube, so you'll be able to find. There's actually a playlist of my podcasts. You'll be able to find all the podcasts on there, and at least listen on YouTube to a lot of them, and that's where I'm continuing to put them. Now, before I was putting out the podcast on a Monday, but because I'm doing this show, what I'm going to do for the time being is to put out the podcast on a Tuesday. So tomorrow I'll do another podcast. I'll stick it on YouTube. You can listen there. I'll also look into the SoundCloud issue and the iTunes issue and see if I can get them back up there as well. But that's basically it was an error. I need to sort it out. So apologies for that. I will crack on. The dark underbelly of London. James is saying, you enjoy Bohemian Berlin. Do you think day game, NJ, do you mean night game, will always be on the fringes of woke, keeping this low key, even though it's biological evolutionary truths with power of persuasion? Well, I mean, the truth is that it's become increasingly politically incorrect to sort of discuss this stuff, I suppose. Although I don't believe that that's entirely true. I mean, there are other YouTube channels, for example, where guys talk about this stuff, and it shouldn't really be viewed as this incredibly dark, manipulative type thing, because it isn't really. I mean, all I'm saying in all of these videos is that you want to be confident. You want to get yourself in the best possible nick that you can, and that's always a work in progress for all of us. And then you want to go and be able to socialize in such a way that you can, you can attract people into your life, and it should be win-win. Okay, it should be a positive for you, but equally it should be positive for her or whoever it is you're approaching as well. So I don't really see it as being some incredible. And look, I know that I talk about the dark triad stuff. I know I talk about Machiavelli and psychopathy and narcissism and all of that. And yes, I mean that's an element of it for sure, because the problem that many guys have is that they're too nice and they're, and all of that. But in essence, I don't think that just going and starting a conversation with somebody, I don't think that's something that we should not be allowed to talk about, because I think these are just basic social skills, really, to be honest, that I'm kind of talking about. But you'll notice that, I try to keep the language clean on here, and I'm pretty sort of polite about everything. And of course, the reason for that is that, there are certain things that you just, it's not really politically correct to say, even if those things are not in themselves bad, So yeah, but I do like Bohemian Berlin and the dark underbelly of London and stuff like that. But you don't have to buy into that. I mean, that's just a personal thing, really. You don't have to buy into that stuff in order to get better results. So that's just kind of like something I kind of like. And if people are interested in that, then that's cool. But you don't need to buy into that sort of aesthetic in order to enjoy this space. I think of other dating coaches who are very, very clean cut, and it's not that I'm saying anything radically different to them, really. So yeah. Anyway, I hope that kind of answers a little bit. What's your best book about Dark Triad? Well, you need to get to you need to get How to Be an Arsehole, which is a very wholesome sounding book. Which is you can get it on Amazon, or it's within Renegade's Dating Blueprint, which you can get below. The link is below. But that's the book where I really talk about the Dark Triad stuff in detail. And then I talk about it within the CAD Academy. Sorry, which way is it? Yeah. I also talk about it within the CAD Academy course as well, which will be open again later in the year. So I'll obviously let you know about that. But How to Be an Arsehole is really where I go into the Dark Triad stuff, which is really fascinating, really interesting stuff, by the way. What's this? Oh, sorry, I was going to actually go to. So Moan says Heartiste talks about hot girls can take more harsh, challenging statements, while normal average girls might need more rapport. How true is that in your opinion? Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's true. Although, like the thing is, if the hotter girl is keen to get rid of you, then and you come out with something that's kind of harsh, then it's a very good way for her to make an excuse to just say, you're uncalibrated, see you later. So you need to, any situation that you go into, you need to be calibrated, and you need to sort of weigh it up as best as possible. But yeah, if there's a girl and she is, I don't know, like lower status in some way, and then you go in and you're like, you say something really rude, then yeah, she's probably not going to take that very well. And certainly the more attractive, modelly type girls, it can seem kind of sexy to them that you are giving them a little bit of friction, because they don't get that as much. So I think that's kind of what it comes down to. Chat Academy. Yes, I was thinking of. So John Modern Life Dating said I should call it Chat Academy, and I was thinking about renaming it that. And I might actually do that. I might rename it as Chat Academy, because what I was thinking was, it's called Cat Academy because it's Charisma and Dating Academy. However, what I could call it is Charisma, Holistic Game and Dating Academy, because I came up with this term a couple of years ago, holistic game. And what that basically means is that you should be using all the different avenues for dating. So you should be doing some daytime approach, but you should also be doing some stuff on the apps and the dating apps, Instagram. You should also be doing some nighttime stuff, and etc. So I could potentially call it Chat Academy, and that would be quite cool. But then people would be like, "Wait a minute, well, Troy's not a chat, and he's calling it Chat Academy." Like, ugh. So yeah, but I would, I am considering that, definitely. Let me just put this in the. So if you are so minded and you want to support the stream, as I say, unfortunately this channel is not monetized, so I can't do super chats. But if you want to give me a donation on Streamlabs, that would be massively appreciated. Obviously, don't have to, but I've just stuck the Streamlabs link into the chat now, so you can always give a little donation over there. Asian Neo. I'm seeing a lot of guys who are broke walking around with hot women, yet guys are forced to do a self-development process. Well, okay, so this is the big question, really, isn't it? This is the and if you watch Rule Zero, you will see that you've got kind of, I mean, everyone's mainly in agreement about most things, but then you've got Rich, who is very much chase excellence. Okay, so Rich Cooper is very much like chase excellence, don't chase women, etc. And I can't argue with that in any way, because of course, because your life isn't just one thing. Your life isn't just, am I going to get girls, or am I going to be rich, or am I going to be rich? Your life is like a pie, and it's all of these things. And ideally, you want to have the best pie. You want to have the best tasting pie that you can possibly have, right? So and of those elements, to be honest, making money, your career, things like this, they are more important. Well, I'm not even arguably. I'd say they are more important than your sex and romantic life, because you've got to get those things sorted, because if you haven't got that, then you haven't got very much of anything. But, and this is the countervailing point here, as Asian Neo says, being rich and ripped and all of these things, you don't need those things in order to have great success in the sexual marketplace, because there are, and I'm sure probably many of us have experienced this, there are very attractive girls who are dating dropouts, layabouts, unemployed guys with no money, guys who are sleeping on mattresses in their mate's flat, bad boys, right? So this whole thing about, yeah, man, you've got to own a Lambo before you're getting any success, or you've got to be rich, or you've got to run a successful drop shipping company, otherwise she's not going to look at you, is all nonsense, really. Because what makes you attractive is not that stuff. I mean, and that stuff can help, but it's not always necessary, because what makes you attractive is a sort of a chemical kind of thing between you and her. And that's really what Cat Academy is about. It's about igniting that attraction with her, because if she's attracted to you, she will put up with a lot. Okay, you can be very, very far from her ideal image of the ideal man, which might be the dude who is a doctor, who works out at the weekends and's got a six-pack, and he's on he's earning like over 6 figures a year and blah blah blah, and he's got a nice car. In her head, she might have that image of, yeah, that's the kind of desirable guy that I should be with. But what she's actually viscerally attracted to in the moment can be very, very different to that. And this is why you get this whole thing about, like the lover and provider dichotomy. So you've got the guy who is, and I think Rollo Tomassi talks about this in terms of attraction versus arousal. So yes, she will be attracted to the guy who is well put together, who has a good lifestyle, who's got a nice car and, good job and all that kind of stuff. And she could be aroused by that guy as well, but she can certainly be aroused, that is to say, excited by a guy who doesn't have any of those things, but who is deemed to be sex worthy. Okay. So she just finds him hot. All right. And he doesn't have to have any of those things. And so the whole self-development thing, in a way, is a bit of a red herring if you're talking just about the pure business of attraction, because you don't have to, get up at 5 a.m. and have a cold shower and do, bare knuckle push-ups and all that kind of stuff in order to be attractive. You could be, very different to that, and you can get action. So it really depends. I mean, as I say, but have it on the other side of the coin, I can't fault at all Rich for saying, work on yourself, because in a way, ultimately, that's more important. It would be irresponsible of me, even though I do kind of jokingly say it sometimes, to say, to people watching this, yeah, just sleep on a mattress on the floor and do drugs and be a cocky mofo and get girls like that. Because I mean, while that can work, that probably isn't the kind of life that you really want to live. But Torero, when I talked to him about this, he says that the self-development stuff is separate to the dating stuff, and in some ways they can almost be opposed at times, and that's a really hard thing for guys to get their head around, particularly guys who are sort of newbies or who have bought into the whole influencer, this is the kind of cool lifestyle you got to live to be successful stuff, because actually you don't need that. But as I say, and I'm repeating myself now, so we'll move on, but at the same time, you do want to live a balanced life, really, or at least you want to have some material, if not even success. You want to be doing the things in life you want to be doing, and you shouldn't be. And even within the game and the dating space, people always say you should work on your mission. Your mission should be more important than the woman that you seek to be with. And I believe that's true, because I think in life, yes, your relationships, your romantic, your intimate relationships, incredibly important, without a doubt. But so too is doing what you want to do while you're on this planet, and that means your career, your work, your legacy, if you want to be pompous about it. So anyway, height does matter. Yeah, I think height matters a bit. I mean, but I mean, with all of these things, Shadow says those bad boys must be good looking though. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I can pull out counter examples, but then that people will say that the law of small numbers. I mean, it depends. I mean, I have known guys. I used to know a guy back in Manchester years ago who was short, not very good looking. I mean, he certainly wasn't fat, but he wasn't like ripped or anything like that. He was a heavy drinker. He used to use different substances. And he got girls. He got girls, and he was short. I mean, he was probably about, I mean, I'm guessing 5'7", maybe 5'6". Skinny little mofo, not rich, but he was a bad boy, and he got the girls. He was also selling dodgy substances, and I knew girls who fell under his spell because they liked that bad boy allure. And these were attractive girls. Okay. This guy wasn't, I wouldn't say he was ugly, but he certainly wasn't, he wasn't like model good looks or anything like that. So, like I say, the reason that he was successful, I think, was because of the bad boy thing, really. And the bad boy thing can be, if not learned, it can certainly be emulated. So I don't like to make any huge generalizations in this area. Saying that, and we were saying this the other night when I did that live stream with Tom, or maybe we weren't actually. I can't remember what we were saying in that live stream, to be honest. But saying that, do looks help? Yeah. Does height help? Yeah. Does money help? Yes, of course. I mean, like all of these things help, yeah, for sure. But the more important question that you need to ask yourself is, do I have those things? And if I don't, what am I going to do about it? So if somebody says to you, yeah, looks really helps in dating, and you are not good looking, or you don't consider yourself to be good looking, well, what are you going to do? I mean, at that point, you've got a bit of a problem, haven't you? Because this guy's just said looks matter, and you're not good looking. Well, okay, so what do you do? And I mean, really, at that point, there's a couple of choices. You either become very despondent about it, and you go black pill, and you go on face an LMS and all of that, or you think, well, do you know what? It's going to be harder for me, and I'm not going to get the level of success that I could get if I was X. But at the same time, I'm only going to be on this planet for a few decades, and really, I quite like to have the best possible time I can have here. So let's have a look at this. Let's have a look and try and figure out, are there things that I can do in order to improve my odds? Is there a way that I can just hack the system a bit? Is there a way that I can level the playing field, even just a bit, in order to enjoy some of this stuff? And in my experience, there is. My belief, my stand on this is that absolutely there are things that you can do, that anybody can do, in order to, in order to get better results than they would have got otherwise. And I mean that in terms of dating, but also in terms of these other aspects of life as well. Other people take a different view. The YouTube channels, the kind of guys I'm talking about. Other people take a different view. And, in the end, that's up to them. But as I say, with all of this stuff, money matters, looks matter, height matters. Well, do you have those things? If you've got those things, great. If you haven't got those things, then you have to make the decision. Then you have to think, okay, height matters. I'm under 6 foot. What am I going to do? And that decision really is the key to where you're going to go next. And if you want to go black pill and you want to go, if you want to despair about it, then that is within your gift. That is your right to do that. Everybody can do what they want to do. But it doesn't have to be that way. And that's not what I'm preaching here on this channel. So that's my take on it anyway. Lupe says, I've seen a tramp with a face tattoo, dreads hanging with a 7.5. I don't know if that's a joke or if that's true. Maybe it's true. But if you go to Berlin, you do see guys like that. I've seen guys in Berlin with face tattoos and all kinds of things, and with very attractive women. So and maybe that's part of the equation. Maybe you need to move to Berlin. Or not move to Berlin, I wouldn't necessarily say that, but maybe you need to go somewhere, like part of it is thinking, okay, so what do I have to offer here? What are my assets? And then thinking about where those are best going to be received, in what sort of social milieu, whatever your particular offer is, where that's really going to be best received. Because I think a lot of the time, I could be wrong, but a lot of the time when the guys are making these more like black pill type comments, it seems like they're thinking about a very stratified social situation, maybe in small town America or something like that, where sure, I can quite imagine that if you are not the head of the football team, if you are not that jacked guy, and the population of where you are is quite small, then you are going to find it very, very hard to break out of that. Sure. But then do you have to be there? Do you have to live there? Is there a chance? Could you live somewhere else? Could you travel? Could you enter into a different marketplace that isn't quite as against you as this one appears to be? And I think what you find when you travel, and maybe that's just, I'm lucky being kind of European and having had the opportunity to travel around a bit around here, is that things aren't as stratified and they're not as set in stone as you might imagine when you travel around, when you go into different markets, when you meet different people. It's not as clear cut as you think it is if you're just sitting in your, the small town and complaining about how the Chads get all of it. Because look, I mean, this is why I dislike hierarchies, and this is why I preach about hierarchies. And the other day we were talking about the Sigma thing, and I was talking about how I try not to buy into hierarchies, because one of the problems is when you're in a hierarchy, the problem with that is the top guy is going to win, or the top guys are going to get the spoils. And if you're not the top guy, then you're not going to be getting the spoils. Which is why cold approach is better than just relying on meeting somebody at your workplace or in your social set or whatever, because you want to be you want to get away from that. You want to hack the system. This is what this is all about, really. Shropshire says, are you still approaching? You must tire of it. It seems CT has, in a positive way, other pleasures, but the wants, desires always exist for IAPs. Well, listen, guys, I've got a girlfriend, right? I'm seeing somebody now, so I'm not actively doing that stuff, at present because of that, because I've got a girlfriend. So, and it was like I said before. I mean, I think that I'm not sure it becomes tiresome, but I think that as you get older, you start to your interest starts to diverge. Your interest, your desire starts to wane a little bit for that. Certainly to the point that it was back in the day, and things do start to change, But like you say, I don't think it ever goes away entirely. So in terms of the sort of like the older guy game thing, and I did a really interesting podcast with Alex Forrest about this, who's a 52-year-old dude based in Warsaw in Poland. And we talk a lot about the realities of it for him. But I think you're for sure. Your interests do start to diverge. You do start to move on to different things, and it's kind of ironic because people will come to me and they'll sort of say, "Oh, well, haven't you got any other interests other than this?" And it's like, well, yeah, of course I have, but I'm doing a YouTube video about dating, so that's what I'm talking about now. I'm not going to start talking about Shakespeare or visiting the British Museum or something. I mean, like, I talk about that stuff on Twitter a bit, but obviously I've got to keep the content relevant because this is what the thing's about. But yeah, I mean, of course, and this is something we're all navigating as well. It's a bit like, okay, so how do you grow old gracefully? What do you do? as you go on, and the answer that many people have is, well, I don't know, I'm out of ideas, you get married. Well, that's one solution. Is that the right solution? That's the question. Other people are trying something slightly different, and we'll see where we end up. I mean, if you look at a dude, I mean, like Aaron Clarey is a good example of a dude, and I don't think he was ever really a game person per se, but he is now, I believe, in a long-term relationship, although I'm not sure if they live together or not, but he's not going to have children, he's not going to get married, he does his own thing, seems like he's having quite a good life. So no, I don't think it's about, I don't think people should be forever out there on the streets and, doing day game and stuff. But then, as I said before, I'm not just a day game person. I'm not just advocating day game. I also think, my dad doesn't do day game, but he is now 70, but throughout his 60s, he was using dating websites, and he's with someone now, but he was dating in his 60s, meeting different women and having a pretty good time by all accounts. So, I think the means that you use and the ferocity with which you attack the issue sort of changes as you get older. But I don't know, man. It's something we're all going through. And as Shropshire says, it'll be interesting to see how this develops in their 50s and 60s. Well, yeah, it will be interesting. And I think what we're kind of seeing a lot of at the moment is people who are, I think most people end up in the end following the societal narrative, don't they? I think we're seeing a lot of guys now who are basically saying things like, right, well, it's time to put away all that stuff, and I want to get serious now, so I'm looking for somebody to get married to, and blah blah blah. Well, that's their choice. I know other people who are going against that, who are saying, well, no, I'm not going to get married, I'm not going to settle down. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be like the creepy 60-year-old, like in the, kind of with the leopard print shirt in the, oh, you're all right, girls. I mean, so I think everybody has their own journey and everybody has to feel their way with this, because we are in a unique time in history. But I mean, things are certainly different for the generation of people you're talking about. Because if you look at the generation before, like my father's, and as I said to you, I mean, even my father has been using dating websites, so maybe it's not even so different to his generation, but the expectation for his generation was that you got married and had a family and stayed together, and that was it. That was still the expectation at that time. And sometime in his generation, which I suppose is the boomer generation, it started to change. Things started to change, and divorce became a reality, and marriages broke up, and people who'd been married for 20, 25 years ended up not being married anymore, and they had to find solutions to that. For my generation, for my generation, the reality was never as clear as that, because for the first time for our generation, there was this option, well, actually, do you get married at all? Do you even go down that route, which has seemingly messed up for so many of our fathers and grandfathers? So, and then with all of the technology that's coming, like the internet, like the dating apps, like the ability, cheap travel, the ability to work online from anywhere in the world, all of these different things, suddenly this digital nomad lifestyle became a reality or a possibility. And then you get to the point of thinking, well, how do I want to design my life then? What is the end game to all of this? How do I actually want to live? One option is to get married and settle down, which was the classic, the old style option, if you like. But that's not the default anymore. And so I do think that this generation is feeling its way, and the generations after it will also have to feel their way in terms of what the model is going to look like. But I think it's no longer, it's not the same as it was, of like, well, this is the default. Because because the default is like smashed on the floor now. You know, it's just, sure, do that if you want, but you certainly don't have to. Actually, let's just have a look at David's here. David's not the best long-term strategy, but if you're able to travel and you are aware of finding new global dating market, this could be a good strategy to find potential second countries. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are certainly possibilities out there. I mean, if you go to Russia, for example, or indeed parts of Eastern Europe, there is less of a stigma about age gaps, for example, in relationships. So that is different to the West. I think actually the Anglosphere, you know, the UK and America and Canada, I suppose, they are fairly rigid in terms of in terms of how relationships are expected to be and the parameters of relationships and things like that. And things are different in other countries, in other parts of the world. You know, but you've got to balance that then with the rest of your life. Like, you know, like it's one thing to say, well, I could just move to Kiev or whatever, but do you actually want to do that? That's the other thing. And again, you know, your life is a pie. It's not just the one thing. It's not just like, right, I'm going to move to X country because all of the girls are really hot there. I mean, you can do that for a bit, but is that a long-term solution? There are other considerations that come in as well, and everyone's just got to weigh these things up. Height helps, but only, says Seth. Height helps, but only for attention. You have to have some game after that. I mean, like the height thing, I think is, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not the tallest guy in the world by any means, and I've done all right. I mean, I see some tall guys who are incredibly dorky, and you know, I don't imagine that they are getting outsized results by any means. You know, I think it's a factor. And I think height combined with, I mean, good looks as well. I mean, like I've got a friend who is quite short, who's shorter than me. I mean, he's like under 5'10". I mean, maybe he's 5'7", something like that. Very good looking guy though, facially very, very good looking guy. And he gets a ton of it. He gets a ton of attention from women. You know, we go out to he's based in the north. We go out in Manchester. He will get women approaching him. And he's not tall. He's good looking, but he's not tall. Conversely, I know guys who are tall, but dorky, who don't get action. So I think I don't know. It's a factor, but again, I come back to the same thing. If you are tall and it's working for you, fantastic. That's brilliant. The problem is if you're not tall, then what are you going to do? And ultimately, it comes down to the $1 million question. Are you going to sit in your bedroom and watch black pill channels and complain? Or are you going to say, well, actually, this isn't ideal, but I'm going to try and make the best of things anyway. And I'm going to just I'm going to find a way to hack the system, you know, and that is the question. That is the dilemma that everyone faces, I suppose. Rory says, being a perfectionist is the worst mindset when trying to meet men, as you will mistakenly think that you have to live up to the image of perfection you think she has of men in her head. Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. Shropshire again. The stark truth of red pill and stepping into oblivion by going black sheep is hard for younger guys as they don't have the experience to deal with it. I only came to the realization in my 40s. Well, I don't know. Is that true? Because you could go and live in a van in your 20s. I mean, in many ways, I would think it would be better, wouldn't it, for somebody younger to sort of go into that. I mean, like in a sense, if you look at somebody like, well, I don't want to speak for Tom, but you look at Tom and you look at somebody like me. I mean, in a sense, I've taken risks in my life with my career and things later than people would normally be advised. You know, really, I should be doing this in my 20s, or I should be doing this in my 30s, kind of thing. You know, like a Myron Gaines type of character. I'm messing around with this kind of stuff, like as an older dude, and you know, I believe that's valid. I believe the path for me is better than other paths I could have taken. But by the same token, I think guys who sort of become aware of this stuff and aware of the options that they have, and they're able to act earlier, I think that is eminently doable, and it might be better. Oscar says you aged well. Thank you. I'm feeling a bit. I don't know today. I mean, slightly red-eyed, but this is an interesting one. So Rory says Mick Jagger, Jimi Hendrix, and Jim Morrison would have had a harem of women, whether they were famous musicians or not. I mean, I would agree with that because here's the thing, right? When I talk about this stuff, and an example I often use, I will often talk about Pete Doherty, and I will say, there is a guy. If people are aware, Pete Doherty is an English musician. He's in a band called the Libertines. He's a heroin addict. He's off his face most of the time. He's done some great music, but he is a massive liability. He is. I suppose he's good. I suppose he's good looking. I mean, look. To be fair, he's kind of good looking, and he is quite tall as well. But he's not ripped. He's in bad shape. He's all over the place. He's a drug addict. And yet, he pulled Kate Moss. He had a relationship with the supermodel Kate Moss. And she was pretty obsessed with him, I think, for quite a long time. Now, whenever I use that example, people will say, yeah, but he's famous, so like, yeah, it's just because he's famous, mate. And I don't really agree, I mean, I think, yeah, he's famous, but like, it is the chemical reaction that these guys create. It's the charisma that these guys have that really creates the attraction that draws these women. I mean, like Kate Moss, regardless of what you think of her, incredibly beautiful woman. Still today, actually, I saw her last year in London. Still looks great, but incredibly beautiful woman, desired by many guys throughout the 90s and the 2000s, whatever. She could have kind of had anybody, really, or she could have had her pick of guys, and she indeed dated Johnny Depp and some other people. She could have got the stereotypical Abercrombie and Fitch, square-jawed, sort of clean-cut dude if she wanted to date, and instead she ends up dating Pete Doherty, who's like a smackhead who's skinny, kind of emaciated, druggy, the kind of guy who would sleep in and fail to turn up for gigs, and just all over the place kind of thing. She dated him. Well, why did she date him and not the clean-cut, ripped, kind of high quality man that the Manosphere talks about? Well, because he had an edge. Because there was something about him. There was something sexy about him. And I believe that would have still been there whether he was famous or not, because I've seen this effect work for people who are not famous. Okay, maybe not on the same level, but let's not split hairs here. I mean, we're not all going to date Kate Moss, but it's something about him. It's something about his mindset, something about his edginess that attracted her to him, I believe. And it wasn't money, because she was richer than him. So yeah, and this is what I teach in. I got it right. This is what I teach in Cat Academy when it reopens. It's all about becoming that guy. It's all about becoming that edgy kind of sex-worthy guy, because I don't think that you need money to do it. It's not about money. It's not about fame. It's not about any of these things, really. It's about your mindsets and the way that you project yourself, and it's about being comfortable with being uniquely yourself, if that doesn't sound too wanky, but and also being a bit dark triad as well, which is something we go to in great detail. So Troy, do you have a picture of a good-looking friend? I don't think I do, not to hand, and I don't think I should reveal it anyway, because I don't know if he wants to be dragged into my seedy world of dating live streams. But it doesn't really matter. He's a good-looking. All I'm saying is he's a good-looking guy, but he's not tall, and he gets women coming up to him, and he is. I think he's 40 now. He might be 39. He's pretty much 40. I was out with him last year. He was getting women were coming up to him. There you go. Well, good for him. But but if you're not that guy, again, you have to think about what you do. So I would not get as many women coming up to me as he does. So I've had to work harder and I've had to make more approaches. But overall, my success has been greater than his because I've done more approaches, because I put myself into more awkward situations than he has. So there's always a way to level up. There's always a way to hack the system. There's always a way to get more of what you want than not. Okay. And that's what this channel is all about. And that's what CAD Academy and CAD Live, the show you're watching now, is all about. All right, listen, I'm going to have to sort of call it to an end now because I've got to go and get something to eat. And I've got a couple of... what hair product do you use? I use... It's not to hand. I use Fudge. There's a couple of things. If you look up Fudge, Fudge, they've got a thing called Matte Head, which is a clay. It's like a dry look, like clay type thing. So I use that. And just recently, I bought another product of theirs, which is a sea salt product that you spray in. And I just used that today, and it gives you that kind of volume. And it's so Fudge is, they do some good stuff. I think they're British. Nobody's perfect. You mentioned short guy that he's women approaching him. That's the last thing you expect a woman to do. Well, he's good looking, you know, like that's what I'm saying. It's like we were talking about the issue of height. And what I'm saying is it's not just height, because I know a guy who isn't tall, but he is good looking, who gets women approaching him. But the question then is like, because then guys will say, well, yeah, but he's good looking. So, yeah, black pill, you know. Fine. But, well, so what are you going to do? You know, maybe you, so if you're a guy who's facially good looking, but you're not particularly tall, then, you know, don't get hung up about height, because height's not the only thing. If you're a dude who's tall, but you're not particularly good looking, then rest assured that height also carries weight, okay? If you are not particularly tall and not particularly good looking, then go to the gym, lift weights, get ripped, work on your style, work on your fucking look, you know, all of these different things, and learn some game and become a badass, okay? And you will also get results. I mean, the point is, you have to accept, there are certain things that you have to accept. You kind of have to accept how tall you are to some extent, although you can wear like shoes with, you know, a bit to give you a bit of height. You kind of have to accept how you basically physically look, because I'm not going to talk about plastic surgery and stuff on here. You know, that's going beyond the remit of this channel. So you kind of have to accept how you look physically, but losing weight helps a lot. Getting into shape helps a lot. Grooming helps a lot. Fashion helps a lot. So there's a lot of stuff you can do around that, but you've got to accept the basic fundamentals. But once you've accepted those, you've got to work with what you've got. You know, you've got what you've got. You've got the hand that's been dealt. And again, it comes down to the fundamental question, which is accepting that hand that you've been dealt. I look like this. I am this tall. This is what my voice is like. This is where I was born. This is my race, you know, whatever. Accepting that fundamental hand that you can't really change very much. What are you going to do? Are you going to sit in the basement and go black pill and complain? Or are you going to try to find the ways around the system that are going to give you the chance for the best life that you can possibly have while you're on this planet for what is actually a pretty short time? You know, I would prefer to take the latter approach. If you want to take the former approach, that's fine. You know, there are plenty of channels that cater to that, but that's not what I'm about. And that's never been my philosophy. So, all of that being said, thank you for tuning into CAD Live. If you want to support the stream, go on to Streamlabs, because this channel is demonetized, but you can support the stream via Streamlabs. You can also support the stream by just buying my books. So if you go onto Amazon, like I said to the other guy, you can buy individual books there. Or below, there is a link to Renegade Dating Blueprint, which is my collection of 11 books, including How to Be an Arsehole and various other things. There's a book called Text Game Mastery, 50 Shades of Game, lots of different stuff in there. It's a real bargain, so check that out. And also get onto my free daily email list as well. I put the link also below. I send out an email Monday to Friday, most weeks, most days. Sometimes I have to miss it, but by and large, I'm sending out a short article every day, keeping in touch, just different thoughts that I've had about dating, game, all this good stuff. Plus, you know, some news, some offers, you know, some freebies, things like that. So get onto that email list as well. If you haven't already, please do hit subscribe to this channel. Keep you updated as and when I'm putting new video content out. Podcast tomorrow, so look out for that. And yeah, that's it. I will see you guys again very soon. Thanks for tuning in and thanks for all the questions.